This is the morning program with Nadia Mitsopoulos on 102.5 ABC Perth and ABC Radio WA.
Well, you're going to hear a deeply personal and troubling story about how a gambling addiction cost a young West Australian his life. He admitted he had one in a note he wrote before he took his own life. And his family is still grieving and probably always will, because if you've lost someone to suicide, you know that pain never leaves you. Well, the sister of this man is going to talk to you in just a moment, because she really hoped the Prime Minister would listen to her and a host of other people, including members of his own party, who wanted a total ban on gambling ads. And understandably, she's feeling pretty let down this morning. And it is 27 minutes to 9. Well, on Thursday of last week, the Prime Minister announced some changes to gambling ads. Rather than a total ban, he'll allow 3 TV ads an hour from 6 in the morning till 8:30 at night. None during live sports matches that are on during those times. There'll be no radio ads during school drop-off and pick-up. And celebrities and sports players can't be in gambling ads anymore. And if you're logged into an online account and you're over 18, well, you'll still get them, unless you choose to opt out. How many of you will? I don't know. You tell me. Now, this is well short of a total ban on gambling ads, which was recommended by a parliamentary committee 3 years ago, and a lot of you are pretty disappointed, including a Perth woman who we will call Kate. She lost her brother, an addicted gambler, to suicide. He was just 24 years old, and she's pretty flat this morning about what the Prime Minister has done, or rather not done, and she wants to share her brother's story. Kate, good morning.
Good morning, Nadia.
Can you tell me about your brother first? What was he like?
Yeah, he was amazing. He was 24 years old, had everything ahead of him. Just a kind person that, had everything ahead of him, really, is the best way I can describe him.
What can you tell us about his death?
Yeah, death by suicide at 24, so pretty debilitating. We still feel debilitated from that. I think really hard to describe unless you've experienced it, and then on the other hand of that phrase, I would never want anyone to experience it. So I think it's just, something that still shocks us to this day, and we just try to live with it.
How long ago did it happen?
Coming up to 5 years.
Okay. And he left a note. What can you tell us about what he wrote?
He was just really clear in saying that he wanted us to live a good life, and he was worried that wouldn't happen if he had a gambling addiction. So he was really clear in saying that he loved us so much, and he couldn't bear the thought of affecting us badly, which is ironic, obviously. But I guess it gives you an insight into what someone's mind is like when they're struggling with that.
And so he admitted in that letter that he had a gambling addiction.
Yeah.
Did you know that he had one?
I had no idea of how bad, obviously. It's a really hidden addiction for people, because it's something that people can do on their phone now, and it's, completely hidden, I guess, if people choose to hide it. And that really comes from how rooted it is in shame and how normalised gambling is in our society. So I think,
So Kate, what do you know about what your brother was betting on, how he was betting? Do you know what his habits were?
I honestly don't know how bad it was, still to this day. I know, obviously, the events that unfolded reflected how bad it was for him, but he really tried to hide it from us. Mostly, I know that he tried to self-exclude, tried to do everything to stop, and that wasn't working. He was continuing to receive inducements when he self-excluded. And I know that was one of the final straws for him, because it's really hard. I think it's really hard to put yourself in someone's shoes unless you've experienced it. But I know that he felt like it was all his fault, and everyone has a personal responsibility, obviously, in society, in our life, but he just felt it was 100% his fault. What's wrong with him? Everyone else doesn't really seem to have a problem, or people, it's normalised, so I think he really struggled with that shame, and that really drove him to do what he did.
You are listening to Kate. She's talking about her brother who died by suicide 5 years ago, and in a note before he took his life actually admitted that he had a pretty severe gambling addiction. Now, if you know what this life is like, or if you have had a friend or a family going through a gambling addiction, and we're talking about this because the Prime Minister has not banned gambling ads. He's restricted them but not banned them, which is what a lot of people want. And if you feel comfortable talking, get in touch on 1300 22 1025. And did your brother ever talk about wins or losses? Did he talk about his gambling at all?
Yeah. Well, it was obviously, as many of your listeners will know, like, it's quite a normalised thing. So it's really normal for people to talk about, like, put $10 on this, do this. That was something I definitely observed in his friend group and continue to observe to this day, because many people still don't know his reasoning. So I think something I know he told me was, I remember he was banned for winning too quickly at the time, and he's, why are they doing that? They're banning me for winning too much because it's suspicious. And then when he asked to stop receiving texts and asked to stop receiving inducements, he was continued to receive them. So I remember that clearly, because I thought, that's so wrong. How's that happening?
And did he ever talk about the losses?
Like, not specifically. I think that was a big part of the shame. I think that would be something he would just carry by himself and try to cope with and just not affect his family.
And so he's trying to self-exclude. He's trying to remove these inducements and these messages, yet they kept coming through.
Yeah, that's right. And then Sportsbet was fined. I think it was, I don't want to say how much it was off the top of my head, but in January 2021, Sportsbet were fined for those texts. So they're aware, and they said it was a technical glitch.
Do you believe them?
No. Why would a technical glitch result in people of self-excluded being targeted? Because that's what the industry is predicated on, addiction. And honestly, Nadia, I've only learnt this after the fact, and I have still questioned, like, even my involvement in this, because I really want things to be helped for other people, but it's too late for us anyway. So I really want to help other people, but yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty convenient technical glitch. If you ask me.
Yeah. And Kate, make no mistake, I think, you speaking this morning is I'm sure going to help somebody out there, even if it is only just one person. And I just think I'm just still trying to wrap my head around the fact that your brother is asking for these messages to stop, for the inducements to stop. They keep coming. And he's telling you, I mean, that's a cry for help, isn't it? He's telling you these, they won't stop. They keep coming. Yeah, exactly.
Did
he feel overwhelmed by that, do you think?
Definitely. I mean, obviously, like, it speaks for itself, the events that unfolded. But I think in terms of, like, other people out there who may be worried about a family member, like, there's always things you wish you'd done in this situation. Like, there's never going to be a situation where you feel like you did enough if you lose someone through suicide. But I think, honestly, he hid most of it because he didn't want to affect us, which is obviously ironic.
Do you think he felt shame?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was so ashamed, and I think that's what really is upsetting about the politics unfolding the way they have now, is that, all this time later, like 1,000 days after the Murphy Review, it still feels as though that public health lens isn't being placed on the gambling industry. Like my dad said yesterday, it's as if the gambling industry gave Anthony Albanese these reforms. That's how he feels, because there's no evidence to support this partial ban that's been announced. And it was explicitly stated in the foreword of the Murphy Review. It said partial bans do not work. We can have no room for circumvention. Those are the words in the foreword.
And you talk about the Murphy Review, and that happened 3 years ago, that parliamentary inquiry that looked into this. Actually, Peter Murphy was a Labor MP who chaired this, and she very much backed, as you've said there, a total ban. You actually, you gave a submission to that inquiry, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And I gave evidence in 2022.
What'd you tell him?
I basically just tried to stick to the facts. And obviously when there's emotions involved, it's really difficult, but I just tried to be as clear as I could and say, these are the facts of our situation. These are the facts of my brother's situation. Do what you will with the facts, basically. That's kind of how I tried to approach it, because I think, if you're a grieving sister, you can definitely struggle to get your message across clearly because of all the emotions involved in a situation like this. So I know everyone I've talked to really wanted be clear on the radio this morning and say, like, this wasn't an inquiry with just people affected by gambling harm. This was everyone. So, like, everyone's perspective was heard, the gambling industry, the sporting codes, everyone. And then that was the conclusion that the committee drew. So I think that's an important point to clarify.
And a total ban on gambling ads, which your brother was being bombarded with, is what you wanted. Do you feel let down by the Prime Minister? Do you think the compromise, which is restrictions, is a cop-out?
Well, yeah, if there was evidence to support a partial ban, I would be thanking him, but there's not. So, yeah, of course I'm going to be critical because he's not basing his decision on the evidence. And I do understand when you're in a leadership position, you can't please everyone. That's not possible. But when he talks about we've got the balance right, I question the balance for who? Because he already has a multi-partisan backed report sitting there recommending these actions. He hasn't taken those. So you've got to ask who is the balance for? And then you've got to look at what Peter Murphy recommended, which was a phased-in full advertising ban to give time for those codes to not rely on this income, because I think it's really important for people to understand, like, where is this money coming from? This isn't coming from people who are betting $10 with their friends. This is coming from people who are ruining their lives with addiction, $32 billion. I think that's just something that seems to be missed in the debate.
Yeah, the statistics speak for themselves. And interesting, you talk about the revenue here. Free TV Australia, which represents the commercial TV industry, free-to-air ones, said in a statement that it acknowledges community concerns but needs gambling revenue to fund essential free broadcasting. Do you accept that?
No, I don't accept that. I think there's many. If we look at the debate going on with our gas taxing situations, there's so many other ways to get that revenue if the will is there. If the political will is there and the bravery is there, there are ways around it. But I accept that if people aren't willing to face up with political bravery, then I don't think many people would morally or ethically accept that we need to take money from gambling companies to fund free-to-air TV. Because if you actually look at that chain, that circle of where that money's coming from, I don't think many people would accept that.
Do you think there is still an opportunity for this to be revisited in a few years? I mean, do you feel like your fight is over? I don't feel like it is, listening to you this morning.
Well, I think it takes a toll on the people who've delivered evidence. Definitely takes a toll. And I had no idea about politics before I was asked to submit to the Murphy review. So I was asked to do that. I thought, that seems like the right thing to do. Did that, and then when the review came out, I thought, oh my God, this is so bittersweet because they're doing the right thing finally, but it's way too late for us. And then so to see it play out the way it has is upsetting. And I don't know, you can't infinitely, I don't know, I guess I just question what kind of democracy we live in if this is the outcome of the evidence and the time passed and everything else involved in this discussion. It's a really hard thing to accept. So I'm not sure, Nadia, I really want people to be protected by this industry, but these reforms that have been announced don't touch the sides of the report recommendations, and inducements are one of the most harmful parts, and that hasn't been mentioned. So it is hard. I'm not sure at this stage.
How is it 5 years on for your family? I know what it's like, and it never leaves you. It never leaves you. And you always ask why, what could have been if this was changed. Maybe if there was a ban on gambling ads, maybe your brother would be alive. Do you go through that in your head over and over and over again? I think
it's just about the normalisation of a harmful product. We shouldn't normalise a harmful product. And of course, you can't stop people doing what they want. Everyone has agency, but it's extremely painful. It's extremely painful, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But I think it definitely adds a layer of pain to watch this debate unfold the way it has, and this outcome to be a partial ban. That is a really hard thing. Even this weekend, I was like, I need to stay away from this news because this is quite painful. Yeah.
Well, Kate, thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking to me. It is a personal story, and we are protecting you and giving you a different name today, and we're more than happy to do that. I've got so many text messages coming in from people saying thank you for being so brave and open and honest and talking about this, including from Fiona at Senator David Pocock's office, who's just texted saying, Kate is such an incredibly courageous young woman. Thank you for shining a spotlight on this issue and the need for a total ban. It's appalling that the Prime Minister refused to meet with Kate and her family. Gambling is almost like a curse. says Mark.
Mm.
Why do you not want to ban gambling advertising? Think of the harm, Prime Minister, and people saying it should be treated like a public health issue.
Yeah, I think the last thing I would like to say to you is, like, this shouldn't be normalised, and if you know if our government doesn't take this seriously, it will continue to be normalised. So yeah, I just really want people to be okay. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Kate. Good to talk to you, and take a breath, and we'll just, really reflect on what you've said to us this morning. And of course, our thoughts are with you because, this is a lifelong journey for your family. Can I remind you, Lifeline 13 11 14 is the number you need at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Also, the National Gambling Helpline, 1800 858 858. Don says we should be embarrassed about our obsession with gambling and sport. They shouldn't be the priority in people's minds. No, they should not. And just to clarify, it was 2022 and Sportsbet had to pay $3.7 million in fines and penalties after breaking spam laws. They actually sent around 150,000 text messages and emails promoting gambling to customers who had tried to unsubscribe, like Kate's brother. Just think about that for a moment.